I've spent my life building things, houses, roads, hospitals, but the hardest thing I ever built was myself. I've been betrayed by blood, burned by love, and left standing in the rubble of my own home. Yet I learned that silence can be sharper than rage, and that sometimes demolition is the only way to rebuild. I'm Michael Alvarez, and this is the story of how I tore down lies and poured the foundation for something stronger. The sound of hammers and drills has been the rhythm of my life since I was 15. Some kids spent their summers chasing girls or sneaking into swimming pools. I spent mine on job sites, sweating under the Texas sun, learning how to carry cinder blocks without breaking my back and how to take orders without complaining. My father, Hector Alvarez, believed that work wasn't just a duty, it was salvation. The man who sweats is the man who survives, he used to tell me, his voice gravelly, coated with sawdust and stubborn pride. Now I'm 32, and the sweat has bought me something. Respect. A steady income. A modest 3-bedroom house in a neighborhood where the lawns stay trimmed and the neighbors wave when you drive by. The house still smells faintly of fresh paint from the remodel I did myself last year, and every time I walk through the door, I know it's mine, not because a bank says so, but because every nail and beam feels like an extension of my own skin. I fought for all of it, climbing from grunt laborer to project manager. Long nights, busted knuckles, and a back that sometimes feels twice its age. But when I look at what I've built, I can almost forget the sacrifices. Almost. The one thing I never wanted to sacrifice was family. My wife, Laura, is supposed to be proof of that. She's a nurse, sharp, hardworking, with the kind of calm patience I always admired. When we married fresh out of college, I thought we were two sides of the same coin, me pouring myself into the company, her into her patience. Together, we'd carve out something solid, something no storm could shake. But life has a way of testing even the most careful plans. I have a younger brother, Adrian, 5 years behind me but a lifetime apart. Where I broke my back to earn respect, he floats through life on charm and excuses. He's got that easy smile that makes women forgive him, and a knack for slipping out of responsibility like it was a shirt that never quite fit. My mother, Rosa, has always coddled him, her baby boy, who in her mind, could do no wrong. Father tried to beat discipline into him with stern words and long hours on the crew, but Adrian always found a way to vanish when the work got hardest. Sometimes I wonder if Rosa sees me at all. To her, my sweat is invisible. My achievements are expected, like the sunrise. But Adrian, every tiny success of his gets praised like he discovered fire. That imbalance never bothered me as much as it probably should have. I told myself it didn't matter. What mattered was building my own life, my own family. Laura and I. That was the vision. Lately, though, I've started noticing cracks. Not in the house, not in the company, but in the rhythm I've built my life around. It started small. Nights when Laura came home late, smelling faintly of antiseptic and exhaustion, saying her shifts had run over. I believed her, of course I did. A nurse's life is chaotic. But sometimes she seemed distant, like her body was home but her mind was elsewhere. Her laugh, once quick and warm, grew harder to coax out of her. Her eyes, when they landed on me, sometimes looked like they were searching for something I wasn't giving. I tried to brush it off. I told myself marriage wasn't about constant fireworks, it was about steady fires that never burned out. Still, I couldn't shake the unease, like a splinter buried too deep under the skin to ignore. One night after a 14-hour shift at the site, I collapsed on the couch, boots still laced. Laura came out of the shower wrapped in a towel, her skin damp and glistening. Even exhausted, I couldn't help but notice her, the curve of her waist, the way her dark hair clung to her shoulders. Desire stirred low in my stomach, a reminder of how good we once were together. I reached for her, playfully tugging her wrist. She smiled, but it was thin. Michael, not tonight. I'm wiped out. She kissed my forehead instead, soft but detached, before retreating to the bedroom. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan, listening to it creak as it spun. That's when I realized I couldn't remember the last time we'd made love. Sex had never been the foundation of our marriage, but it was a kind of glue, a way of saying without words that we still chose each other. And now, that glue felt like it was cracking. The next morning, I shook off the doubts. Work demanded focus, and the hospital wing expansion was the biggest project I'd ever been entrusted with, $3.5 million on the line, and my name tied to it. Inspections, scheduling, subcontractors, it all piled on, threatening to crush me if I slipped for even a moment. Still, somewhere in the back of my mind, Laura's distance lingered. Adrian, of course, was nowhere to be found. He'd pop into the office now and then, flashing that grin, making excuses about side hustles and networking opportunities. Dad saw right through him, but Mom? She acted like every half-baked story of his was proof of genius. Meanwhile, I kept the company running, the crews loyal, the projects profitable. It wasn't fair. But fairness had never been part of the deal. One Friday evening, I came home early for once, determined to surprise Laura. I imagined the two of us cooking dinner, maybe opening a bottle of wine, finding a way back to that easy warmth we used to share. Instead, I walked into silence. The lights were dim, the house empty. A note sat on the counter, extra shift. Don't wait up. I crumpled it in my hand, jaw tight. For the first time in years, I didn't believe her. And that terrified me more than anything else. Mornings used to be easy. Coffee, a kiss, a quick swap of plans. Now the kitchen is an airport corridor where strangers brush shoulders without meeting eyes. I sit with sight drawings. Laura moves around me like I'm an island. Fridge, sink, phone, purse, out. I'm picking up extra shifts, she says, tying her hair. Mia's doing them too. Mia is new, loud laugh, bright lipstick. I've met her twice, and both times she looked at me like a closed door. You burning out? I ask. We could cut back. Laura pecks my cheek. We need the cushion. Then she's gone, leaving citrus shampoo and something colder in the air. Work swallows me. The hospital wing is a $3.5 million puzzle. Inspectors want one thing, the architect another, subs nod and sprint for the exit. I log 12-hour days, chasing signatures and scheduling pores around forecasts that miss as often as they hit. That's when Adrian starts showing up. First a text, need anything from HEB? Then a photo of him with groceries in our driveway. The next week I swing home for a late lunch and find him with Laura, both laughing at something on her phone. They look up like kids caught with a water balloon. Adrian claps my shoulder. Big bro. Just helping with heavy stuff. Those dog food bags weigh a ton. We don't have a dog, I say. He laughs harder. He drops by more errands, repairs, favors. He offers to pick up dry cleaning that doesn't exist, to fix hinges that aren't broken. Laura thanks him with a tone I haven't heard in weeks, warm, melting at the edges. I tell myself to let it go. Maybe she feels safer with someone around when I'm gone. Maybe he's trying to step up. Night stretch. I sleep at the office to make dawn meetings. Laura doesn't protest. She texts hearts, sends selfies with Mia, faces lit in neon, the city glittering behind them. When she gets home before me, she's wired. She dances in the kitchen to a song only she can hear, hips rolling as she opens wine. The way her t-shirt clings when she laughs makes heat flare in me. Sex feels scheduled now, missed more often than made. I reach for her, she taps my chest, playful but distant. Later, Mia's spinning at this new place. I promised one drink. On a Tuesday? She shrugs. The earrings I bought her last Christmas glint like amused eyes. I try to fill the space with progress. We pass the first inspection. We pour at dawn, the slab steaming in the cold. My crew trusts me. I feel it in how they look over when I step onto the site. That steadies me, until my phone buzzes. Cash withdrawal, $120, every Friday. We don't keep patterns like that. I ask over dinner, pasta and jar sauce, 2 candles because I'm trying. She twirls noodles. Mia's tight on rent. I spotted her, she says. Don't start. Not everything needs an invoice. I swallow my questions. Later, in bed, I reach for her again. This time she doesn't say later. She kisses me with a heat that startles me, nails grazing my shoulders, breath catching. We find the old rhythm, skin, sweat, the headboard thudding. For a handful of minutes, the distance disappears. Afterward, she rolls to the cool side. I'm going to shower, she says. Water rushes. Her phone lights the nightstand with a pulse once, twice, 3 times. I don't look. I don't look because I'm afraid. Adrian offers more help. He leaves a spare key for emergencies. He texts Laura memes at midnight. When I catch them together, it's always innocuous. Groceries, a dead bulb, his car idling at our curb while she returns from a run. He calls me Cap like the guys on site, and for a moment I almost believe there's a brother in him I just never met. Then little things slip. Laura forgets a story she told me yesterday. She says she worked a double, but Mia posts a rooftop photo, tagged 11:40 p.m., lime wedges, city lights, 2 wine glasses, one with Laura's lipstick shade. When I mention it, Laura says the photo's old. When I mention the lipstick, she smiles. It's a filter, babe. The house stops sounding like ours. The fridge hum is too loud. The door chime feels like a question. Patterns don't prove anything. They just collect, sticky as dust. Sunday, I'm patching drywall when Rosa lets herself in. She never knocks. Me, Joe, she says, kissing my cheek. Where's Laura? I brought tamales. Yoga with Mia, I say. Rosa nods as if she already knew. You're working too hard, she says. A woman needs company. It's nice Adrian comes by. I set down the putty knife. Didn't know you were keeping his schedule. She laughs, light as tissue paper. Mothers keep everything. There's more in her tone than the words hold. I try to see it, but she's already in the kitchen, unwrapping foil. When Laura returns, she hugs my mother longer than she hugs me. That night I dream of rebar cages and collapsing forms, of something poured wrong, hidden forever in the concrete. Morning. I lace my boots and watch Laura sleep, hair dark across the pillow, hand curled near her face like she's holding an invisible thread. I want to tie that thread to me. Instead I whisper that I'll be late, that I love her, that I'll bring breakfast tacos if I can. She stirs, half smiles without opening her eyes. You're good to me, she murmurs. Driving to the site, I pass the hospital where our wing is starting to rise, steel bones catching early light. I think of how much of life is trust, beams and bolts, people and promises. I wonder what I've built my trust on, and whether I've inspected it closely enough. My phone buzzes at a red light. A photo from Adrian, he and Laura on our front step, grinning, heads bent together, sun flaring off the lens. Got the mail for you, Cap, the text reads. Teamwork makes the dream work. The light changes. I don't move until the car behind me honks. Then I go, slow, as if the road ahead has turned to wet concrete and I'm trying not to leave a track I can't take back. You learn to trust patterns in construction. Measure twice, cut once. A wall off by an inch will haunt you forever. At home, I thought patterns meant stability, Laura's shifts, family dinners, the rhythm of weekends. But lately, the patterns don't line up. They shift, stutter, leave gaps too wide to ignore. Fridays first. Laura makes cash withdrawals, the same amount every week, $120. Not a fortune, but steady. When I ask, she shrugs, parking fees, tips, things she forgets to log. But nurses don't get paid cash and tips aren't part of the job. Patterns don't lie, people do. Her moods change too. Some nights she comes home glowing, cheeks flushed like she's been kissed by more than cold air. Other nights, she's brittle, snapping at the way I chew or the mess of my boots. When I reach for her, sometimes she melts into me, urgent, sex as if it's proof she's still here. Other nights she turns away, saying she's exhausted, pulling the sheets around her like armor. I start to feel like her body isn't always her own to give anymore, and that thought burns me in places I can't admit aloud. The lies aren't just hers. My mother slips too. Rosa calls Laura more than me now. Their voices drop when I enter the room, their eyes dart like kids with secrets. One Saturday, I hear laughter in the kitchen, Rosa whispering, Laura responding low, words I can't catch. The moment I step in, silence falls. Rosa changes the subject to tamales. Laura fiddles with her phone. My own house feels borrowed, and I wonder when that happened. When I ask Mom later, she pats my hand. Laura is stressed, Mijo. Don't push her. Her eyes don't meet mine. You work too much. She just needs a friend. Maybe she's right. But the unease digs deeper. Like rebar rusting inside concrete, unseen, unstoppable. Then come the medical visits. Laura claims it's routine checkups, a lingering flu. But she hides the paperwork, folds receipts into her bag before I can glance at them. Once, I find a pill bottle in the bathroom trash. The label's torn, the name unreadable. When I ask, she bristles. You don't need to know every detail of my health. The edge in her voice stops me. Since when was her health a secret? One night, unable to sleep, I sit in the living room with the lights off. The house hums softly, the fridge, the heater kicking in. Laura is in the bedroom, whispering on her phone. I catch fragments. No, he doesn't know. I told her, keep it quiet. Her tone is urgent, intimate. When I step into the hall, the whispering cuts off. By the time I open the door, she's turned her back, phone dark on the nightstand. Who was that? I ask. She doesn't flinch. Mia. She's going through something. She yawns deliberately, rolling over. I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to her even breathing. Every inhale feels like a lie. Work doesn't wait. The hospital wing eats my hours, and my crew depends on me. I push harder, burying myself in blueprints and punch lists. Out there, among steel beams and scaffolds, things make sense. Numbers add up. Lines meet clean. But as soon as I drive home, doubt rides shotgun. Adrian doesn't help. He's around more, always with that grin, always eager to run errands for Laura. Once I catch him outside our house, handing her something small wrapped in a paper bag. She laughs, nudging his arm. The moment she sees me, her face changes, guilty in a way she can't cover. Adrian waves like nothing's wrong. Big bro. Just dropping off a charger Laura left in my truck. Her eyes flick to mine, then away. My stomach knots. A charger? Since when did she ride in his truck? I tell myself it's nothing. I try to believe loyalty runs deeper than suspicion. Adrian may be lazy, selfish, but crossing me like that? Unthinkable. And Laura, she said vows the same as I did. That has to mean something, doesn't it? Yet the whispers grow louder in the silences. When I walk into a room, conversations shift. When I ask simple questions, answers come too quick, too neat. I feel like the last man at the table, everyone else sharing a joke at my expense. One evening, I find Laura sitting at the kitchen table, head in her hands. Her eyes are red, cheeks streaked. For a moment, she looks like the woman I married, the one who leaned on me when nursing school crushed her. I kneel beside her, take her hand. What's wrong? She pulls away. I'm fine. You're not. I said I'm fine, Michael. She slams her palm on the table, then flinches at her own outburst. A beat later, she softens, reaching for me. I'm sorry. There's so much going on. Her lips brush my neck, her hand slides to my chest. Her eyes are wet, but there's heat in her touch. The sex that follows is rough, desperate, her nails in my back, her mouth claiming mine like a secret. I should feel closer to her, but afterward, when she curls away and whispers, I love you, without looking at me, it feels like a rehearsal, not a confession. I lie awake, the room heavy with the smell of sweat and regret. And for the first time, the thought forms sharp and undeniable. Something is happening in the dark, and I'm the only one left without a flashlight. I wasn't supposed to be home before sunset. A storm rolled in, the pour was canceled, and I didn't text Laura. I wanted to arrive without warning, as if surprise could glue us back together. The house was warm, the porch light off. Laughter drifted from the living room, hers and a second voice that tightened my chest before my head named it. Adrian. They sat close on the couch, the kind of loose, laughing closeness that grows in the absence of fear. Laura's legs were tucked under her. Adrian's arm lined the backrest, fingers inches from her hair. 2 wet-rimmed glasses and lime wedges sweated on the table. Tequila scented the room. I stood in the entry long enough for them to jolt into clumsy innocence. Laura slid her leg down, smoothing her skirt. Adrian yawned too loudly. Cap, he said. Storm ruin the pour? Looks like it ruined your smoke detector delivery, I said. Laura kissed my cheek. Warm lips, quick eyes. He brought a spare, she lied. We were waiting for you. We replaced those in March, I said, setting my tool bag down harder than I meant to. They exchanged a fast look. Two people on the same channel. I smiled like I believed them and went to the kitchen. When I need to think, I cook. I set water to boil, crushed garlic, and let the sting clear my head. Dinner was small talk about Rain and Mia and the hospital. Their stories snagged on the same nails. Laura said she had an extra shift. I mentioned the hospital's post about postponing elective procedures because of the storm. She blinked, then said she meant paperwork. Adrian announced he loved paperwork, then flushed. After dishes, he grabbed the trash. Leave it, I said. He took it anyway and stepped into the rain. Laura stacked plates. I caught her wrist. Sit. Her chin lifted. Michael, I'm tired. So am I said and let go. I walked to my office, shut the door, and turned the lock. If you live by measurements, eventually you take them at home. Years ago I'd installed a light version of our fleet tracker on Laura's SUV. Maintenance reminders, I said. I'd never opened it. Tonight I did. A map appeared, blue pins marking routes and stops. Hotels off I-10. A short-term rental near the Pearl. Our street between noon and 4 on weekdays I was on site. I printed the month and spread the pages like plans. Then the bank portal, boutique dinners, weekend rooms, the Friday cash withdrawals I'd already noticed. The totals weren't huge. The precision was. Knock. Laura's whisper, Michael? Please open the door. Soon, I said, and opened her old email, the account she abandoned after switching phones. The password was the date of our Port Aransas weekend with a nurse joke attached. The inbox bloomed with my mother's name. Subject lines looked innocent. Inside, he thinks you're at a double park behind the shrubs. Adrian will stop by Friday. I'll call Michael at 1 to keep him on the phone. If you feel sick, go to Dr. Salinas. He won't ask questions. Sick. I searched. An ultrasound appointment. A clinic follow-up. A small word that rang like steel. There was a mirrored text backup she never fully disabled. Messages labeled A. Adrian's alias. Let him think it's his if it happens, my mother typed. He has the house. He has the insurance. Laura, I hate this. I hate lying. Adrian, we'll figure it out. He'll be fine. The room tilted. I printed what mattered and opened the door. They were in the hall, Laura with wet eyes, Adrian with that half-cocked grin he used when bluffing. I held up the pages. Tell me I drew the lines wrong, I said. Rain ticked in the gutters. Laura reached for my wrist. Heat traveled up my arm, memory of soft nights when we didn't have to ask. Michael, please, she whispered. You're exhausted. I'm awake, I said. Adrian squared up, as if posture could turn him into a man. Don't make this a scene, Cap. You've been rehearsing one for months, I said. In my house. He looked to Laura, then back. We were just talking. Hotels talk now? Banks too? Something in my voice made him eye the door. I pointed at it. Get out, I said. He laughed and then didn't. This is my brother's place. It's mine, I said. Out. He waited for me to blink. I didn't. The storm took him when he finally stepped outside. I closed the door and faced Laura. She was shaking, not with cold, with calculations falling apart. She reached for me again, palms on my chest, the heat of her waking old reflexes, the tilt of her neck, the scent of shampoo, the first time we had sex in this hallway. My body answered even as my mind geared down into something colder. Were you going to tell me? I asked. Her mouth opened and closed. I was scared. Of me. Of losing everything. The truth stung because it was so small compared to the size of the lie. You should have been scared of disrespect, I said. Of wasting the years I bled for us. She flinched. It wasn't supposed to go this far. It never is. I led her to the table and laid the printouts down, routes, receipts, emails. We're going to talk. Not tonight. And not about saving face. About facts. Her shoulders slumped. Michael, I'm late, she whispered, hand drifting to her stomach. I don't know what that means yet. The sentence was a sledgehammer wrapped in gauze. Behind it, 100 Sunday mornings collapsed. I swallowed. It felt like nails. Then we'll find out, I said. But without lies. And without Adrian. She nodded. I didn't sleep in our bed. I sat in my truck with rain drumming on the cab and stared at the hospital skeleton rising in the distance. Out there, weight is honest. You calculate, brace, pour, cure. If something is off, the structure tells you. Near dawn, I wrote 3 words on a pad. Measure, mark, cut. Tonight was the cut line. Tomorrow I'd start building something stronger than denial. I would do it alone. I thought I'd reached the bottom of betrayal. Seeing Laura with Adrian on my couch, finding receipts and GPS logs, hearing whispers in my own home, I believed that was the worst of it. But betrayal has layers, and the deeper you dig, the darker it gets. It began with an old email account, Laura's nursing school one, long abandoned. I'd cracked it during that stormy night when rage and instinct guided me. Back then, I skimmed only enough to confirm my suspicions. But now, I combed through everything, every draft and hidden folder. The pieces formed a blueprint of deception so intricate it made construction look simple. Subject lines looked ordinary: grocery list, shift swap, family dinner. But inside, I found coded exchanges with my mother. Rosa's words filled the screen: careful, conspiratorial. He thinks you're covering a double. I'll call him at noon to keep him distracted. If Adrian stops by, keep the blinds half shut so the neighbors don't talk. Remember, Michael is the foundation. You build the story around him. Foundation. As if I were a slab to pour lies over. I scrolled faster, anger mounting with each keystroke. Then came the real blow, an appointment reminder forwarded from Laura's clinic. OB/GYN follow-up, confirmed pregnancy. Dated 2 weeks ago. And a reply from Rosa: don't worry. Michael will believe it's his. He's stable, reliable. Adrian isn't ready to be a father. Not yet. The words blurred. My heart thudded like a misfired nail gun. They weren't just cheating. They were plotting, using me as scaffolding to prop up their mess. My mother, my wife, my brother, all twisting my loyalty into leverage. I closed the laptop, breathing hard. For a moment, I considered storming into the bedroom, shaking Laura awake, demanding answers until her lies cracked. But I didn't. Fury is loud, but strategy is quiet. And I'd learned long ago on job sites, if you want a structure to fall, you don't smash the walls, you cut the supports. So I planned. First, I documented everything. Screenshots of emails. Printouts of bank statements. GPS routes traced in red. I slipped them into a folder marked Invoices Q3. Next, I called a name I hadn't said in years: Clarissa Vega, attorney. We'd gone to high school together before she left for law school in Houston. Now she specialized in family law in San Antonio. When I told her just enough to outline the situation, her silence was heavy. Then, Michael, don't move rashly. Come in tomorrow. Bring proof. We'll start with your assets. The next day, I sat in her office across from walls lined with degrees and casebooks. She flipped through the folder, eyebrows tightening with each page. You've built your life carefully, she said. We'll make sure they don't take it from you. Her pen moved fast: separate accounts, property protections, premarital asset locks. She was clinical, efficient, a surgeon of law. For the first time in weeks, I felt like someone was on my side. Meanwhile, I adjusted things at the company. Adrian's privileges, gas card, credit line, site truck, vanished overnight. Officially, it was cost-cutting. Unofficially, it was me pulling nails from his safety net. I didn't tell him. I wanted him to stumble face-first into the reality he'd ignored his whole life. With Dad, the confrontation came quietly. One evening after the crew packed up, I showed him the folder. Hector Alvarez, a man carved from stone and sweat, sat at my desk and read in silence. His jaw tightened, his knuckles whitened. But his voice was steady when he spoke. Your mother has been blind to Adrian her whole life. But this is betrayal. Of me. Of the family name. His eyes met mine, steel hard. We'll deal with it, That word anchored me. For the first time, I realized I wasn't alone in this storm. At home, I played my part. I kissed Laura when she leaned in, even when her lips tasted of guilt. I nodded when Mom called, pretending her voice didn't grate like sandpaper. I let Adrian brag about helping out, while his eyes darted with nerves he couldn't hide. Let them think the foundation was steady. Let them believe I was still in the dark. But inside, I was already drawing blueprints for demolition. When Laura announced one evening that she was pregnant, her hand trembling over her stomach, Rosa's voice on speakerphone cooing congratulations, I smiled like the dutiful husband. Inside, though, I heard Clarissa's words, document everything. Build quietly. When the time comes, you'll be untouchable. They thought I was the fool, the tool, the steady one who would hold the house up no matter how much they gutted the beams. But they forgot. I'm the one who knows how to bring a structure down. I've always believed silence is a tool. On a construction site, silence means respect. You don't interrupt when the foreman is marking the lines. At home, silence can be a shield. And in war, and that's what this had become, silence is the sharpest weapon of all. After that night with Laura's announcement, I didn't rage, didn't accuse. I kissed her forehead, placed my hand gently over hers on her stomach, and said, "We'll get through this." My voice didn't shake, but inside, I felt the cold certainty of a man who already knew the truth. That child wasn't mine. But if she and Rosa wanted me to play the role of provider, I'd play it, just long enough to burn the script in their hands. The first fortress was financial. Clarissa Vega, precise and ruthless, walked me through every step. We opened a new account in my name only. My savings shifted there overnight, safe from Laura's reach. Joint accounts were trimmed down to a trickle, just enough to make her believe nothing had changed. Clarissa filed paperwork to shield my house, premarital property, from any division. "You've been too careful, Michael," she said, a rare smile tugging at her lips. "That's going to save you." I started documenting everything. Receipts, withdrawals, text logs, GPS routes, copies of emails tucked neatly into binders labeled site safety reports. If Laura ever tried to play innocent, the evidence would speak louder than I ever could. Adrian didn't know yet that his leash was cut. His company credit card stopped working. His access to our sites was quietly revoked. When he showed up at the office one morning and his badge didn't scan, I watched from the window as he laughed nervously, waved at the guard, and walked away like it was nothing. But the storm building in his eyes told me he understood, something had shifted, and for once in his life, it wasn't in his favor. Dad was in on it now. Hector Alvarez wasn't a man of many words, but when I showed him the financial maps, the pregnancy note, the betrayal spelled out in digital ink, his fury was the kind that didn't need shouting. "You've built this company," he told me. "Not Adrian. Not your mother. If they think they can steal from you, they'll learn what it means to lose." His hand on my shoulder was steady, his presence the backbone I needed. At home, I kept up the charade. Laura's smiles felt brittle, her laughter off-key, but I matched them, played the dutiful husband. She whispered to Rosa in the kitchen, her voice low, but I pretended not to hear. She left at odd hours, shifts that always coincided with gaps in Adrian's day. I made no comment, no accusation. Instead, I logged each one like a contractor taking inventory. The nights were the hardest. Lying beside her, listening to her even breathing, I'd remember the first time we made love in this very room, how her body had felt like a promise. Now, even when she reached for me, when her hands slid under my shirt and her breath warmed my neck, I couldn't shake the image of her sharing the same touches with my brother. I'd respond, because silence in bed would raise alarms, but every time I came, it felt less like love and more like a contract signed under duress. But sex, like silence, could be strategic. It kept suspicion low, let her believe the illusion of normalcy was intact. She still thought she controlled the script. She still believed Rosa's whispers that I was too loyal, too blind to ever see the cracks. What they didn't know was that I had already started drafting the end. Clarissa prepared divorce papers in secret, airtight, and merciless. The assets were locked, the accounts frozen to my touch alone. We even lined up DNA testing, quiet, unobtrusive, ready for the moment the baby came. Every stone was placed, every wall braced. Sometimes, sitting in the quiet of my office, I'd think about the irony. I'd spent my life building things, houses, offices, hospital wings, structures meant to last. But the greatest project of my life wasn't construction. It was demolition. Quiet, careful, deliberate demolition of a lie that had wrapped around me like scaffolding. One night, Laura curled against me, her breath hot on my chest. "You've been different lately," she murmured. "Calmer." I was scared you'd, I don't know, lose faith in us. I kissed her hair, my lips brushing the crown of her head. "I told you I'll take care of you," I whispered. And in that moment, she sighed with relief, believing me. But inside, my silence was steel, and my strategy was almost complete. The next step would be dinner. A family dinner. A table set not for unity, but for execution. The day I set the table, the house felt staged. I ironed the runner, aligned plates, lit the orange cedar candles Laura likes, and uncorked a bottle Hector gave me when we landed the hospital contract. I wanted the night to look like celebration. The trick with traps is to make the bait glow. Laura drifted through, watching me like I'd grown new edges. "You sure about this?" she asked, smoothing her dress. "It's time my family acted like one," I said, heartbeat slow the way it gets before a pour. Hector arrived first. He hugged me, then stood at the window, jaw grinding while he looked at the yard he taught me to keep. We'd rehearsed our roles. He would say little. He would watch. Rosa came next, perfume first. "Me, Joe." She pressed her cheek to mine as if a kiss could revise history. Her eyes darted to Laura's stomach and softened theatrically. "Madre de Dios, a blessing." Adrian came late, smug in the jacket I bought him, sleeves pushed up like he was about to deal cards. He didn't hug me. He clapped my shoulder and squeezed, testing. I'd cooked simply, grilled chicken, charred peppers, rice. Conversation skittered from weather to work to Mia's latest hobby. Laura smiled too much, Rosa laughed on delay. Adrian poured himself more wine than the rest of us and told a story about a guy at the gym who didn't know who he was dealing with. I let the performance run until dessert, trace leches Laura had picked up. When the plates were set and the candles had shortened into glittering wells, I stood. "I have news," I said. The room went still in that polite way families go still when they smell a fight but hope for a toast. Laura touched my wrist. "Maybe after coffee," she murmured. "Now," I answered, sliding a navy folder from beneath my chair. Hector didn't move. He didn't need to. His presence was a weight at my back. I spread the contents like blueprints, bank statements flagged in amber, GPS logs highlighted in red, printed emails where Rosa's words braided through Laura's replies. At the end waited a second folder, embossed, Clarissa's work. Rosa's hand flew to her throat. "What is this?" "Documentation," I said. "So we don't have to argue about memory." Laura's eyes filled, then hardened. "You went through my emails." "I went through my life," I said. "The part you thought you could stage manage." Adrian smirked, but his eyes jittered. "You gonna read us our crimes, Cap?" The dates read themselves. I tapped a week. Hotel. SUV parked 3 hours on our street while I was at the site. And here, I slid an email forward, instructions from my mother on where to park so the neighbors wouldn't notice. Another telling you to let me believe the baby is mine. Rosa recoiled. "Michael, I was trying to keep this family together. You work too much." She was lonely. "It was a mistake." "It was a plan," I said. Laura reached for me, fingers trembling. The scent of her, candle and skin, hit a place in me that still remembered the first night we stripped each other in the hallway. The memory flickered, the present held. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I lost my footing. I didn't know how to stop." "You stop by putting your feet on the ground," I said. "Not on my brother." Adrian leaned back. "Look, man, if you were around." Hector stood so fast his chair scraped the tile. He didn't shout. "Sit," he said. The word landed like poured stone. Adrian sat. I opened the embossed folder and removed a neat stack. "These are divorce papers," I said to Laura. You'll find them fair where fairness is possible and unforgiving where it isn't. The house remains mine. The accounts you did not fund remain mine. We will do a DNA test when the child is born. If it's mine, I'll take responsibility. If it's not, you and the father will. Rosa made a small sound. Michael, please. I turned to her. There's a second packet for you. I handed Hector another folder, her messages and wire transfers to Adrian from accounts my father didn't know existed. Hector took it like a man receiving a verdict he suspected but prayed against. He didn't look at my mother. He looked at me and nodded once. Laura's hand found my sleeve a final time. Michael, she whispered, I loved you. I still. Love doesn't hide in day-rate motels, I said. It doesn't ask a man to raise his brother's child. She folded in on herself. Adrian exhaled a laugh that wasn't one. Drama queen, he muttered, and that was the spark. I didn't hit him. Not yet, that comes later. Tonight I did something worse in his world. I took away the audience. Leave, I said. You're done at the company. Your keys won't start our trucks, your badge won't open our sites, your cards won't buy gas. His mouth worked. You can't. I already did. Rosa looked between us, panic lighting her face. Hector, say something. He's your son. Hector's eyes were iron. So is Michael. And I won't sacrifice the man who built this family for the boy who keeps tearing it down. Silence gathered, the final kind. I slid a pen across the table to Laura. You don't have to sign tonight, I said. Read. Get a lawyer. But don't sleep in my house again. She stared at the pen, then at me, as if somewhere behind my eyes lived the version of me who could still be convinced. That man was gone. When they left, Adrian first, cursing, Rosa second, sobbing, Laura last, I blew out the candles. Smoke climbed. Hector stayed. We didn't speak for a long time. When he did, his voice was rough. You did what had to be done. I nodded. In the kitchen, a lime wedge had fallen to the floor, a wet half-moon. I threw it away, then washed the plates until the sink gleamed and my reflection in the steel looked like a man I almost recognized. Scarred, steadied, done pretending the house was level when the spirit was not. The trap had sprung. Tomorrow would be demolition. Tonight, there was only the echo of a home relearning honesty. The night of the dinner still echoed in my chest like a hammer strike. I had walked into that storm knowing the house I built would never be the same, but I hadn't expected the silence afterward to feel heavier than shouting. Adrian was the first to break it. He barged into my place the next evening, nose bandaged from a bar fight he claimed was nothing. The way he said it made me wonder if he wanted me to believe it or if he wanted to hide that someone else had finally hit him where it hurt. He smirked, wine on his breath, and leaned against my counter. You only exposed it 'cause you couldn't keep her happy, he said, voice slick. I gave her what you couldn't. Don't act like you didn't notice. The words slid under my skin like nails, hot and jagged. I saw Laura in his grin, saw Rosa in the way he carried arrogance like it was permission. And before I thought better of it, my fist connected with his face. The crack of cartilage breaking was sharp, final. Blood poured between his fingers as he staggered back, cursing. You're done, I said, voice low. With her. With me. With Dad's company. You don't exist here anymore. He spit red into my sink. You think you're some savior? She begged me for it. You were too busy playing foreman to notice your wife needed a man, not a paycheck. I hit him again. This time he stayed down. When Hector walked in minutes later, summoned by my text, he didn't ask questions. He looked at his younger son bleeding on the floor and said, Adrian, get out. His voice was a death sentence. You're not my son anymore. Rosa arrived soon after, frantic, clutching tissues and excuses. He's hurt, Hector. You can't turn your back on him. He's your blood. You made him weak, Hector replied. Every time you covered for him, every time you put him above Michael, you built this rot. Don't talk to me about blood. Rosa's face crumpled, but she turned to me, tears streaking her makeup. Mijo, please forgive your brother. Laura's confused. You work too much. This can still be fixed. No, I said. You all made your choice. I'm making mine. Laura stood in the doorway then, suitcase in hand, her eyes swollen from crying. Michael, please, the baby might still be yours. We can test it. We can start over. Her voice cracked, soft and desperate. I wanted to believe her. For a moment, I saw the girl I met in college, the nurse who worked double shifts to help pay for our first down payment, the woman who once fell asleep on my chest as if I was the only safe place in the world. But that woman was gone, buried under lies and whispers. I shook my head. Even if it's mine, I won't raise a child in this sickness. Not like this. She sobbed, clutching her stomach. Adrian cursed me from the floor. Rosa begged. Hector stood tall, silent but resolute. The fracture was complete. My marriage was broken, my brother disowned, my mother's mask ripped away. The family I thought unshakable lay in ruins, and for the first time, I saw clearly, I had been the only one holding it up. That night, I slept in the house alone. No whispers, no footsteps, no lies drifting through the halls. The silence wasn't peace, it was aftermath. But for the first time in months, I wasn't the one trapped in the dark. I had broken the structure. And now, all that remained was rubble. The week after the dinner felt like controlled demolition, charges placed, fuses lit, pieces falling in order. Paperwork landed first. Clarissa filed the divorce, fast and clean. Laura moved into a sublet near the medical center, a beige box with a narrow balcony. I carried her last suitcase to the door. When our fingers touched the handle, heat flickered, memory more than desire, a ghost of nights we devoured each other after long shifts. She held my stare a second, then looked away. The DNA report arrived 3 days later, clinical fonts, a percentage that settled the ground. Not mine. Adrian's. I read it twice, then once more for the part of me that still hunted for a trapdoor. Clarissa forwarded it to counsel and to Hector. Rosa learned an hour afterward. Her call lit my phone while I was marking anchors on the slab. I let it ring and drew the line anyway. Adrian called too, first raging, then pleading, then promising change like a man who thinks words can pour a footing. I met him behind a strip mall where he'd picked up a night shift. Fluorescence scraped his face flat. You did this, he hissed. You turned dad. You took my life. I took back my own, I said. Yours was borrowed. He tried to laugh. You left Laura lonely. You married your job. It was bait. I walked away before my hands asked for more payment from his face. Rosa's secrets unraveled next. Hector found transfers she'd made for years, little streams pooling into Adrian's rent, tickets, dinners. She called it a mother's duty. He needed help. Michael has everything. Hector didn't blink. Michael earned everything, he said, and served her notice. Watching him set down his wedding band was like seeing a beam you trust turn to powder. No shouting, just signatures and air where vows used to live. The company breathed easier. Without Adrian drifting through meetings like a charming weather front, crews met schedules, bids landed, small fires stayed small. Feels quieter, my superintendent said, rolling a nail between his fingers. Quieter is good. I nodded and thought of how quiet a house can be after you carry out the furniture. Laura and I met once for mediation in a room that smelled like filtered air and old coffee. She wore a cardigan I'd bought last spring. It hung looser. When the mediator stepped out, she asked, was any of it real? The mornings we couldn't keep our hands off each other, the way I fell asleep on you after doubles, was that a lie because I became one? It was real, I said. The memories rose anyway. Flower on her arm, my hand under her shirt, quick, breathless sex against the refrigerator while the coffee dripped, her body rising to meet mine like beams finding their join. The ache that followed wasn't lust. It was grief for a life that had been strong until we hid rot inside it. But the version of us who lived it is gone. She dabbed a tear with her sleeve. I hate what I did. I hate that I liked feeling wanted when you were gone. She searched my face. If the test had been different, it wasn't. I slid the agreement across the table. Take the car and your clothes. Keep the scholarships you mentor. Leave the rest. She nodded, a small motion heavier than shouting. Will you hate the baby? It isn't his fault, I said. But he isn't my responsibility. When we stood, she stepped close like a tide touching an old shoreline, shampoo, skin, a pulse I recognized. For an instant the room shrank to an inch of air between us, the yes we used to speak without words. My hands stayed at my sides. She turned first. Rosa fell next. Neighbors stopped waving. She took a part-time retail shift. I saw her once, guiding a man to a drill bit. She looked smaller. When our eyes met, she flinched, then tried to smile. "Me, Joe," she said, like a password that no longer opened any door. I paid and left. At night, the house remembered me. I sanded the stair rail, I changed the couch angle, I threw out the wineglasses with the ghost of lime on their rims. Some evenings I fell asleep in work clothes, dreaming of rebar and storm clouds and a woman's laugh I couldn't place anywhere safe. Other nights I woke with the old hunger clawing from habit, my hand reaching for a shape that wasn't there. I stopped drinking for a while. I started running at dawn, letting cold air scrape my lungs and clear the static. The hospital wing rose. Steel to decking, decking to concrete, the skeleton becoming a place where sick people come to be made whole. Inspectors nodded. The crew joked more. My father started showing up with coffee he brewed himself, not the paper cup kind. We didn't talk about Rosa unless we had to. We talked about lifts and loads and weather. When the decree came through, the lines were crisp. Laura left with her car, her clothes, and a promise to keep my name out of pity stories. Adrian kept his last name and little else. Rosa signed papers that ended a marriage longer than I've been alive. That night I stood on my back porch with a beer I didn't drink and listened to the neighborhood. A dog 2 houses over, a train, someone laughing. The world hadn't ended. It had been replumbed. One more thing shifted. A new architect joined the project, stepping into the trailer with clean questions and a stack of marked-up drawings. Camille. No ring. When our fingers brushed passing a set of plans, a live wire ran up my arm. Not lust exactly, not yet, more like proof a body can still lean toward heat without betraying itself. I filed the spark where it belonged, future tense. Collateral damage isn't only wreckage. It's space cleared for sky. I swept the floors, touched up paint, found the quiet spots in my house. The bed was big enough for one. The mirror held one face. The man in it didn't look victorious. He looked level. I wasn't healed. But I was plumb, square, true enough to bear load. Tomorrow, I'd start building again. 8 months is a long time when you measure it in silence. 8 months since the dinner, since the papers, since the fracture that split my family into jagged halves. What amazed me most wasn't how much had been lost, it was how much space there was when the noise was gone. The company thrived. Without Adrian dragging jobs down with excuses and vanishing acts, crews moved smoother. Contracts came easier. Hector, grayer but sharper than ever, called me partner in meetings and meant it. We poured new foundations across San Antonio, steel rising under my watch, each beam and brace a reminder that even after collapse, new frames stand. My house changed too. At first, it felt cavernous, echoes of laughter and footsteps that no longer belonged. But I filled it with different sounds. Coffee percolating at dawn, the hum of a treadmill in the spare room, the quiet scrape of pencil on fresh plans. I patched walls, repainted trim, changed the locks. Each small act rewrote the space, until the house stopped being the place where I'd been betrayed and became the place where I learned to live alone without breaking. Rosa faded. I saw her once, pushing a cart through a discount store, uniform shirt untucked, eyes down. She didn't notice me. I didn't stop her. Hector filed the divorce, firm and clean. He poured his fury into work, and for once, into me, into building a legacy he trusted. Family is what stays when storms hit, he told me one morning over coffee. His voice was gravel but steady. The rest, he shook his head. The rest was illusion. Laura stayed gone. We signed the last of the divorce agreements in silence. She walked out with only a duffel, a car, and a belly that no longer held my question. The DNA test had already carved the truth into stone, Adrian's child. I didn't ask where she lived after. Maybe with her friend Mia, maybe alone. All I knew was she never called. And I never dialed. Adrian, he disappeared too. Last I heard he worked nights, stocking shelves, his face still crooked from my fist. He texted once, "You ruin me." I didn't reply. The ruin wasn't mine, it was built brick by his own hands. And then there was Camille. She arrived on site with rolled plans under her arm, hair pulled back, eyes bright with ideas. An architect, younger than me by a few years, but her voice carried authority. The first time we argued over load calculations, she leaned over the drawings so close her perfume hit like memory and possibility tangled together. My pulse tripped in a way I hadn't let it in months. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't desperation. It was steady heat, the kind that doesn't burn out quick. Coffee meetings turned into long evenings reviewing specs, then into dinners where conversations strayed from beams to books, from site work to stories. One night, walking her to her car, she touched my arm, light, deliberate. The kind of touch that doesn't ask, doesn't beg, but offers. And I found myself wanting to say yes again. She was nothing like Laura. Camille didn't lean on charm or whispers. She challenged me, pushed back, laughed loud, and expected respect. She had her own income, her own apartment, her own world. Being near her didn't feel like being used, it felt like being seen. Sometimes, lying in bed alone after those dinners, I thought about Laura. About how the first years of our marriage were real, how the sex, the laughter, the mornings tangled in sheets weren't fabrications. But real doesn't always mean forever. And when trust rots, the structure collapses no matter how pretty the paint. Looking back, I realized blood had betrayed me, but loyalty had saved me. Hector stood. Clarissa guided. My crew worked harder because they believed in me. And maybe Camille, maybe she was proof the world wasn't only broken promises. On the site of the hospital wing, the structure we'd sweated over stood complete. Glass, steel, brick, gleaming in the Texas sun. I stood on the sidewalk, hard hat under my arm, watching patients file in. Families holding hands. Doctors in scrubs. A place built to heal. That's when I understood, betrayal had gutted me, but it had also cleared the rot. I wasn't a husband anymore, not a brother in the same way, maybe not even a son. But I was a builder and I was still standing. Stronger than before. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone in the rubble. I felt ready to build again.